You are 60% water right now. Not metaphorically, not in some poetic hand-wavy sense. Literally, right now, as you sit there watching this, more than half of your body weight is water. Your blood is 90% water. Your brain is 73% water. Your lungs are 83% water. Even your bones, the driest, hardest things inside you, are 31% water. You are a sack of water that learned to walk around and have opinions. And in about 40 seconds, I'm going to take all of that water away from you for 5 seconds, and you're going to find out exactly what you are without it. Not just you, by the way. Everything. Every ocean, every river, every lake, every raindrop currently falling, every cloud currently floating, every puddle on every sidewalk, every drop of moisture in every cell of every living organism on the planet. All of it. Gone. 5 seconds. Then it all comes back. 5 seconds sounds survivable. 5 seconds sounds like a held breath. A long blink. The time it takes to sneeze twice. You could count to 5 right now, and nothing about your life would change. But water is not a lamp you can flick off and on. Water is the operating system. And 5 seconds without the operating system is enough to corrupt every file on the hard drive. Let's start with you. Second one. The moment water vanishes from your body, you don't gradually dehydrate like a person lost in the desert. This isn't a slow process. Every molecule of H2O inside you simply stops existing for 5 seconds. 60% of your mass disappears in an instant. Your blood is gone. Not thickened, not reduced. Gone. Your circulatory system is now a network of empty tubes. Your heart is squeezing on nothing. It contracts, and there's nothing to push. The pressure in your arteries drops to 0. Your brain, which requires continuous blood flow and will begin taking permanent damage after just 4 seconds without oxygen, is suddenly a dehydrated sponge sitting in a dry skull. Your eyes, which are almost entirely water, deflate. The vitreous humor that holds your eyeball in its round shape vanishes, and your eyes collapse inward like grapes left in the sun for a week. You can't see. You can't think. You can't feel, because your nerve cells require ion channels that only function in aqueous solution. Your entire nervous system goes dark. In the first second, you go from a conscious, breathing, thinking person to something closer to beef jerky with a heartbeat that's trying to pump air through empty veins. But that's not the worst part. Look around. Everyone else is in the same condition. Every human on Earth just lost 60% of their body mass simultaneously. 8 billion people, all collapsing at the same moment. But humans aren't even the most water-dependent things on this planet. Dogs are 60% water. Cats are 67%. Fish are 80% water. A jellyfish is 95% water. When water vanishes, a jellyfish becomes a thin film of protein and salt lying flat on a dry ocean floor. And yes, the ocean floor is dry now, because we need to talk about what just happened out there. Second two, the oceans are gone. 1.335 billion cubic kilometers of water just vanished from the surface of the Earth. To put that in terms your brain can actually process, that's enough water to fill a pool the size of Texas, stacked 180 kilometers high. Imagine the entire Gulf of Mexico, the Mediterranean, the Pacific, all of it, replaced by bare rock and sediment. The Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth's surface, is now a dry canyon nearly 11 kilometers deep, exposed to open air for the first time in 4 billion years. The abyssal plains, which cover more than half the planet's surface, are now the world's largest desert, covered in a thick layer of gray mud and the flopping, deflating remains of every marine organism that ever lived. Whales are lying on exposed seabed. Their bodies, suddenly 65% lighter, are collapsing under their own remaining weight because the buoyancy that supported them is gone. And here's where physics gets truly violent. The oceans aren't just water sitting in a bowl, they're weight. The total mass of Earth's ocean water is approximately 1.4 times 10 to the 18th metric tons. That weight has been pressing down on the oceanic crust for billions of years, and the Earth's crust has settled into equilibrium under that load. It's called isostatic equilibrium, The crust literally floats on the mantle, and the oceans push it down. Remove that weight instantaneously, and the crust rebounds. Not slowly, the way it does when glaciers melt over centuries. Instantaneously, because the weight disappears instantaneously. The oceanic plates flex upward. Tectonic stress that was held in balance by the weight of 1 billion cubic kilometers of water releases all at once. Every fault line on every ocean floor moves. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the Pacific Ring of Fire, the Cascadia subduction zone. Seismic activity doesn't increase, it detonates. Earthquakes ripple out from every ocean basin simultaneously. We're not talking magnitude 5 or 6. We're talking about the kind of tectonic energy release that normally takes millions of years of gradual pressure change, all compressed into a single moment. The ground shakes everywhere on Earth. Everywhere. But that's not the worst part. We haven't talked about the sky yet. Second 3. Look up. The clouds are gone. Every cloud on Earth was made of water droplets or ice crystals suspended in the atmosphere. They're gone now. The sky is a shade of blue you've never seen before, darker and deeper than any sky in human history, because there's no moisture scattering light. No haze, no humidity, no water vapor at all. The atmosphere just lost its primary greenhouse gas. Not carbon dioxide, water vapor. Water vapor accounts for roughly 60% of Earth's natural greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide gets all the press, but water vapor does the heavy lifting in keeping the planet warm. Without it, global temperatures begin dropping immediately, not slowly. The atmosphere starts losing heat to space at a rate that would, if sustained, plunge surface temperatures below freezing within days. 5 seconds isn't long enough for that temperature drop to matter on its own, but it tells you something about how thin the line is between Earth and a frozen rock. Every river on the planet is an empty ditch. The Amazon, the Nile, the Mississippi, the Yangtze, the Ganges. Dry. Every lake is a basin of mud. The Great Lakes, collectively holding 20% of the world's fresh surface water, are 5 empty holes in the ground between the United States and Canada. Lake Baikal in Siberia, the deepest lake on Earth, is a canyon. Aquifers, the underground reservoirs that supply drinking water to billions of people, are empty cavities in the rock. And we haven't even talked about what this does to living things beyond humans. Every plant on Earth is dying. A tree is roughly 50% water by weight. The water inside a tree is doing critical work every second of every day. It's flowing upward from the roots through the xylem, carrying dissolved minerals. It's evaporating from the leaves through transpiration, which is actually what drives the whole upward flow. It's keeping cells turgid, which means pressurized, which is what makes a plant stand upright instead of wilting into a heap. Remove the water, and every plant on Earth goes limp simultaneously. Every forest on the planet sags. Leaves curl, stems buckle, grass flattens, flowers drop. Not dead yet, not in 2 seconds, but damaged at the cellular level in ways that matter. And here's the delayed bomb I need you to remember, because it won't go off for another few seconds. Deep underground, beneath the aquifers, beneath the water table, there are places where water is doing something you never think about. Water seeps into rock. It fills the pore spaces in sandstone, the fractures in granite, the voids in limestone. In volcanic regions, groundwater interacts with magma. It sits in chambers and fissures near magma bodies, superheated and pressurized. That water has been acting as a coolant and a pressure buffer in geothermal systems worldwide. It just vanished. The magma chambers beneath Yellowstone, beneath Iceland, beneath the Cascades, beneath the entire Pacific Ring of Fire, just lost their water buffer. I'll come back to this. Remember it. Second 4. Every bacterium on Earth is dying or dead. Bacteria are about 70% water, and they're single cells. When water vanishes from a single cell, the cell membrane collapses. Proteins denature because proteins require water to maintain their 3-dimensional shape, and enzymes stop functioning because enzymatic reactions happen in aqueous solution. Bacteria don't have the luxury of multicellular buffering. Every bacterium, every archaea, every single-celled organism on the planet flatlines. And there are more bacterial cells on Earth than stars in the observable universe. The microbial world, which underpins every ecosystem, every nutrient cycle, every digestive system, every soil food web on the planet, just got wiped. Fungi are 70 to 90% water. The vast mycelial networks running through forest soils, the ones that connect trees and allow them to share nutrients through what scientists call the wood wide web, those networks are collapsing. Mushrooms, yeasts, molds, gone. The decomposition infrastructure of the entire planet just failed. Nothing can rot. Nothing can break down. The cycle of nutrients from dead matter back into living systems has stopped. Second 5. This is the last second. Every cell of every multicellular organism has now been without water for nearly 5 seconds. In your body, the proteins in your cells have begun denaturing. Proteins fold into their functional shapes in water. Without water, they unfold. They lose their structure. They stop being the specific molecular machines they were designed to be. Your DNA, which is normally suspended in an aqueous solution inside the nucleus of every cell, is now sitting in a dry cavity, and the hydrogen bonds that hold the double helix together are behaving differently without their water shell. Cellular membranes, which are made of phospholipids arranged in a bilayer that only works in the presence of water, are collapsing. The inside and outside of your cells are no longer meaningfully different spaces. 5 seconds doesn't sound like enough to kill you, but at the cellular level, 5 seconds without water is a catastrophe that no medical intervention could reverse, even if doctors were conscious and hospitals were standing. And now, second 6. The water comes back. You might think this is the rescue. This is where everything returns to normal, where all that water slots back into place and life resumes. But water returning might be worse than water leaving. Start with the oceans. 1.335 billion cubic kilometers of water reappears above the ocean basins. But the ocean basins have moved. The crust rebounded upward during those 5 seconds. The shape of the container has changed, and the water doesn't gently fill from the bottom up. It rematerializes at the approximate altitude where sea level was, and then gravity takes it. A mass of water weighing 1.4 times 10 to the 18th metric tons drops onto ocean floors that are now in slightly different positions than they were 5 seconds ago. The impact generates waves that make the word tsunami feel quaint. These are walls of water generated by the gravitational reintroduction of the entire ocean. They radiate outward from every ocean basin. Coastal cities that somehow survived the earthquakes 3 seconds ago are now facing waves that could reach hundreds of meters inland. But that's not the worst part. Remember the underground water? It's back too. Water re-enters those magma-adjacent chambers and fissures, but the thermal and pressure dynamics have changed in the 5 seconds it was gone. Magma that was partially cooled by water had 5 seconds to heat surrounding rock without that coolant. Water re-entering superheated rock doesn't gently resume its old equilibrium. It flash boils. The pressure spikes. In volcanic regions worldwide, the reintroduction of groundwater into destabilized geothermal systems triggers phreatic eruptions. Steam explosions blow through rock. Yellowstone's hydrothermal features, which are normally held in check by the careful balance of water pressure and heat, have had that balance obliterated and then violently reset. The geysers don't just erupt, the ground fractures. Now your body. Water returns to your cells, but the cells aren't waiting for it with open arms. The membranes are ruptured. The proteins are denatured. The internal structures of your cells have collapsed and deformed. Water floods back into spaces that no longer have the architecture to manage it. Imagine inflating a balloon that has been cut with scissors. The water goes in, but it doesn't restore the shape. It just fills the wreckage. Your blood returns to your circulatory system, but the lining of your blood vessels has been damaged by 5 seconds of desiccation. Your heart starts beating again with fluid in it, but the fluid is being pumped through damaged vessels into tissues that are leaking. Your brain receives blood again, but neurons that lost their ion gradients and membrane integrity don't just restart like a computer after a power outage. They've suffered anoxic and structural damage that is, in most cases, irreversible. And every other living thing on Earth is in the same condition. The trees have water in them again, but the xylem vessels that carry water upward are embolized. Air entered the system when the water vanished, and airlocks in xylem are often fatal to a tree. The forests of the world are standing but mortally wounded. Their leaves may green up briefly as remaining sugars fuel a last metabolic gasp, but within days to weeks, most trees on Earth are dead. Every crop on every farm, every blade of grass on every lawn, every wildflower in every meadow. The water came back, but 5 seconds was enough to shatter the biological machinery at a resolution no amount of rehydration can fix. The bacteria are in the worst position of all, which is ironic because bacteria are the toughest organisms on the planet. Many bacterial species can form endospores, dormant shells that resist heat, radiation, desiccation, and chemical assault. Given minutes or hours of slow drying, a significant fraction of soil bacteria would have sporulated and survived. But they didn't get minutes. They got zero warning. The water vanished instantaneously. Sporulation takes time. Most bacteria died as active cells, caught mid-division, mid-metabolism, mid-everything. The soil microbiome is functionally destroyed. The gut microbiome of every animal on Earth is destroyed. Decomposition halts. Nutrient cycling halts. The invisible foundation of every ecosystem on Earth has been knocked out. So what does the world look like a week after water disappeared for 5 seconds? The oceans are back, but the coastlines are wrong. Mega tsunamis from the water's return reshaped coastal geography. Seismic activity from the isostatic rebound is still producing aftershocks. Volcanic eruptions triggered by groundwater flash boiling are ongoing in Iceland, Indonesia, the Philippines, Central America, and the Pacific Northwest. Yellowstone's hydrothermal system has destabilized in ways geologists will argue about for decades, assuming any geologists survived. Most large animals are dead, not from thirst, from cellular destruction. 5 seconds without water denatured proteins, ruptured membranes, and destroyed the microscopic architecture of life in every organism on the planet. Smaller organisms fared better in the sense that some fraction of bacterial endospores, some fraction of fungal spores, some fraction of seeds with extremely low moisture content survived intact. Life isn't gone, but the living world has been knocked back to something like the recovery period after a mass extinction event. The forests are dying. The Amazon, the Congo, the boreal forests of Canada and Russia, all standing dead within months. Without soil microbes to cycle nutrients, without mycorrhizal fungi to feed roots, without functional vascular systems to move water from soil to leaf, even the trees that survived the initial 5 seconds succumb in the aftermath. The world's forests become the world's largest store of dry fuel, and the first lightning strike in any of them starts a fire that nothing can stop. Agriculture is finished for at least one growing season worldwide. Every crop in every field, from Iowa's corn to India's rice paddies to Ukraine's wheat, was killed at the cellular level. The seeds in the ground may be partially viable, but the soil therein has no microbial life to process nutrients into forms that roots can absorb. Replanting requires rebuilding the soil microbiome from whatever survived, and that takes years, even under ideal conditions. Food supplies are limited to whatever was dried, canned, or frozen before the event, and the supply chain to distribute it is crippled by damaged infrastructure and a population that is mostly dead. The oceans are technically full of water again, but the marine ecosystem is gone. Phytoplankton, which produce roughly half of Earth's oxygen through photosynthesis, were killed in the same cellular wipeout as everything else. Zooplankton, krill, fish, whales, coral, all dead. Coral reefs, already under stress before the event, are now bleached limestone skeletons in warm, lifeless water. The ocean is a bathtub now. The right shape, the right amount of water, but nothing alive in it except whatever bacteria managed to sporulate in time and whatever deep-sea organisms near hydrothermal vents might have found some weird edge case of survival in the heat and chemistry of their environment. And here is where you realize what water actually was. Water wasn't a resource. Calling it a resource is like calling the laws of physics a suggestion. Water was the medium. It was the solvent in which every chemical reaction of life occurs. It was the transport system, the temperature regulator, the structural support, the chemical participant in photosynthesis, the product of cellular respiration, the cushion around every brain, the lubricant in every joint, the medium of every ocean current that distributes heat around the planet. Water was doing everything, everywhere, all at once, and it was doing it so constantly and so quietly that the only way to notice was to take it away. 5 seconds. That's what it took. Not a meteor, not a supervolcano, not a nuclear war, just the brief absence of the most common molecule on the planet's surface. A molecule so simple that a child can draw it. 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom, bonded at an angle of 104.5 degrees. That's the whole blueprint, and without it, for 5 seconds, the planet went from a living world to a dead one. Everything else, the atmosphere, the rocks, the metals, the sunlight, all of it was still there, still working, still available. But without the water to connect it all, to dissolve it, to carry it, to cool it, to fill it, none of it mattered. The planet was a machine with every part in place and no fluid in the lines. 5 seconds of that, and the damage was permanent. You are 60% water. You were 60% water at the start of this, and you still are now. Nothing has changed. But maybe the next time you pour a glass of it and watch it catch the light for a half second before you drink it without thinking, you'll remember that everything you are, everything alive on this planet, every cell and every system and every ecosystem from the deepest ocean trench to the highest cloud, all of it is just water's way of doing interesting things with sunlight. And all it takes to end the show is 5 seconds of nothing.